Hi, I'm Morgan.
And I'm Ryan.
If Ryan and I look familiar, it's because we've been coming on PEG TV for the last few years to talk about radon gas. You may remember that January is National Radon Action Month, so this time of year we like to come on and share our knowledge with you about the dangers of long-term exposure to radon gas.
Morgan and I are both certified radon measurement providers with ARST and RPP.
That stands for the American Association of Radon Scientists and Technologists National Radon Proficiency Program. We also work for a local building inspection company, Criterium-Lalancette and Dudka Engineers.
If you're new to this segment, we'll start by sharing some basic information about radon gas, including testing options and remediation. We'll list some resources at the end and go over questions and answers.
So, long-term exposure to radon gas is the #1 cause of lung cancer in non-smokers. Ryan, what else can you tell us about radon?
Well, radon is invisible, odorless, and tasteless. It is naturally occurring radioactive gas that is released from decaying uranium. It is prevalent in rocky areas with slate and granite. It rises through the soil and gets trapped inside your home. Radon is also site-specific, which means one house could be have elevated levels and the next house next door might be fine.
And radon levels naturally fluctuate too, right?
Yes, radon levels naturally rise and fall throughout the day and are affected by the time of year, temperature, building ventilation, how porous the soil is, and even how the building is constructed.
So what you're saying is that radon gas is naturally occurring, radioactive, and can be in my home? Does that mean that we're breathing radon right now?
Yes, there's radon gas everywhere. Even when we're outside, we're breathing small amounts of radon. And when we're inside, radon can accumulate in dangerous levels.
How prevalent is radon gas?
1 in 15 homes in the United States has elevated levels of radon, with 1 in 7 homes having elevated levels here in Vermont.
Can you tell us more about how radon enters the building?
Radon rises through soil and enters through the cracks in concrete slabs, pores, cracks in concrete blocks, floor wall joints, exposed soil like a sump or crawl space, drains, pipe penetrations. I think you get the point.
And then it's trapped inside where we inhale it.
Right, especially with so many homeowners increasing their home's energy efficiency, they're keeping the heat in, but they're also trapping the radon in too. The EPA estimates 21,000 people die annually from radon-related lung cancer. That's more than drunk driving-related fatalities.
So if I walk into a house that has elevated levels of radon, will I immediately get lung cancer?
Nope, your lung cancer risk increases over a lifetime of exposure to radon.
So if radon gas is so dangerous, how come so many people have never heard of it?
Because it is invisible, odorless, and tasteless, which leads some people to believe that it does not exist.
So how do we know that radon causes lung cancer?
There have been studies conducted on miners all over the world for over 50 years that show an increase in lung cancer with exposure to radon gas.
So we know that radon gas is found underground in mines. How do we know that it can accumulate in buildings?
Well, that wasn't discovered until 1984 and was actually by accident. An engineer named Stanley Watrous, pictured there on screen, was setting off radiation alarms at his job at a nuclear power plant. They soon discovered that Stanley was the source of the radiation, and it was traced back to his home.
So he had high levels of radon in his home?
Yes, the radon level inside Stanley's home was over 2,700 PicoCuries per liter. The damage he was doing to his lungs by living there was the equivalent to smoking 135 packs of cigarettes a day.
Wow. So PicoCuries per liter, what is that?
Yes, so that is the unit of measurement for radon. It was named in honor of French scientists Pierre and Marie Curie, who were famous in the 1800s for their work with radiation.
Did you know that Marie Curie invented a radiological car to provide x-rays in the battlefield during World War I?
Yes, she was also the first woman to win a Nobel Prize.
Very inspirational woman. So the EPA has set the action level at 4 picocuries per liter.
Right. If the radon level is 4 or higher, the EPA says it needs to be fixed.
So before we get into how to fix a radon problem, let's talk a little bit more about the science behind how radon causes lung cancer. It's actually not the gas itself.
Right, it's the radon decay products.
Okay, let's back up. So as uranium is decaying under the ground, it's releasing radon gas. Radon then rises through the soil and gets trapped inside your home. And then when radon gas decays, it turns into polonium, which is a solid.
Yes, and even though polonium is a solid, it's still floating through the air on dust particles, which are then inhaled. And when polonium decays, it releases alpha radiation.
So this decaying polonium is releasing alpha radiation inside my lungs?
Yes, think of the alpha radiation as a bowling ball and your fragile lung tissue like wet paper. When the alpha particles are released, they are thrown into your fragile lung tissue. If this happens repeatedly over and over, it can cause lung cancer.
So how do we test for radon?
Well, there are a few options. There is short-term testing and long-term testing. You can also choose between passive and active devices.
I'm sure there's advantages and disadvantages to both.
You're right. Short-term testing is great because you get your results back pretty quick. However, it is just a snapshot in time compared to a long-term test, which really gives you a good idea of the long-term average. Short-term testing also requires closed house conditions, which means all windows and doors need to remain closed except for normal exit and entry during the duration of the test.
Using an active device is beneficial because you can see the hourly radon levels and environmentals like temperature, barometric pressure, and humidity. A lot of active devices also have tamper-resistant features, which are important during a real estate transaction. Passive devices are just as accurate, though they provide less information since you only receive the average radon level over the testing period. Which would you recommend, Ryan?
Well, it really depends on why you're testing. People that are involved in a real estate transaction typically require fast results with lots of information, so a short-term test with an active device would definitely be the way to go. However, if you are thinking about selling your home in the next few months, I would recommend conducting a long-term test in advance. This test runs under normal living conditions, so you don't have to worry about closing up your home.
We brought some examples of testing devices today so you can see what some of them look like.
So this is a Radon AirCat. It is a short-term active device. This device is ideal for real estate transactions. When you need your results quickly, the data is uploaded to the lab via a Wi-Fi signal, and we receive the results in about an hour. This device takes hourly readings of the radon levels as well as environmental such as temperature and barometric pressure, so it is easy to see if abnormal weather affected the test or if closed house conditions were violated.
And this is a charcoal canister from AccuStar Labs. It's a short-term passive device. While just as accurate as a continuous radon monitor, this device will only give us the average radon level over the testing period. It also takes a little longer to receive the results as we need to ship the device to the lab for analysis. An advantage to using this type of device is that it does not require power to operate.
And this is a AlphaTrack. This is a long-term passive device. The device is placed under normal living conditions for 3 months to a year. While you still receive only the average radon level, since it is in place for a longer amount of time, it provides a more accurate idea of the long-term radon levels.
So let's go over a little bit about placement protocol for a radon test. Requirements vary depending on what type of building is being tested.
That's right, Morgan. For homeowners, you want to place the testing device in the lowest level that you occupy frequently.
However, if the home is involved in a real estate transaction, the testing device needs to be placed in the lowest level that could potentially be used.
So if the basement is dry with high ceilings, we would typically place the testing device there, regardless if the basement is finished and how the seller currently uses that space. The new owner might want to put an exercise bike down there or set up a playroom or den.
What if an apartment building needs to be tested for radon? Where would the testing device go?
So depending on the layout of the apartment building, we might need to put several testing devices in there. A device needs to be placed in every unit and common area in contact with the ground. Some may argue this isn't necessary and only one ground unit needs to be tested. However, ANSI Arst protocol states every ground unit and common area needs to be tested. There have been many various studies conducted that prove some ground units can have elevated levels of radon while others don't. The only way to be sure is to test every apartment in contact with the ground.
Placement protocol for commercial buildings is very similar. Every frequently occupied room in contact with the ground should be tested.
Exceptions would be bathrooms, hallways, and closets.
What about upper level units or rooms? Should those be tested too?
Yes, at least 10% of the rooms on each floor should be tested.
As you can see, any type of radon testing requires accuracy and consistency to determine where and when to test.
Exactly. All building occupants need to be notified that a radon test is being conducted to ensure a successful test, whether it is remembering to keep the windows closed for a few days or not turning off the HVAC system.
Quality assurance and controls need to be in place as well. In large buildings, additional testing devices ensure accurate test results.
Hiring a certified radon professional to conduct the testing is required in some cases, and always a good idea no matter what the testing situation. This way you can be sure that the test is being done according to the highest standards, and you as a consumer don't need to worry about remembering all of the protocols.
Also, if you're presented with someone else's radon test results, be sure to do your due diligence. When was the test conducted and who conducted it? Was it short-term or long-term? You want to make sure that the protocols were followed so that you can trust the results. So let's say I just tested my home for radon and it came back elevated. What do I do next?
So you would want to talk to a certified radon mitigator. They will inspect your home to determine the radon entry point and the best place to install the radon mitigation system.
What is a radon mitigation system?
So a radon mitigation system is a series of pipes and a fan that pull the radon out from under the house and vent it above the roof. A properly installed system should be able to reduce the levels down below 2 picocuries per liter.
Will having a fan running like that all the time affect my electric bill?
Not really any more than any other typical household system. To ensure the system continues to function properly, you should conduct a follow-up radon test every few years.
Great, thanks Ryan. So we have some resources on the screen for you. To search for certified testing professionals and mitigators, you can go to the ARST-NERP website. If you have any questions at all, definitely give us a call or reach out on social media. We have a ton of information that we can share with you.
And if you live in the state of Vermont, you can contact the Department of Health and receive a free long-term test. The link for their website is up there as well.
Speaking of social media, we asked our Facebook followers if they had any questions about radon, and they came back with some good ones.
So Steve in Castleton rents an apartment in a larger building and wants to know how he can test for radon.
That is a great question, Steve. You can start by requesting that your landlord have the building tested. If your landlord opts for a short-term test, winter is probably the best time, so it's easier for the building occupants to keep their windows closed. If your landlord opts for a long-term test, this can run under normal living conditions for up to 1 year. And Steve, you could also conduct the test yourself. If your landlord doesn't want to handle it, your best bet would probably be to do a long-term test. You can obtain a test kit through the state of Vermont, so you would have no out-of-pocket expense.
Good answer, Morgan. Mary in Stowe wants to know more about radon-resistant new construction.
Thanks, Mary. Radon-resistant homes in new construction have been rising in popularity the last few years as more people become familiar with the dangers of long-term radon exposure. So essentially, contractors rough in the mitigation pipes into as they are building the house. Since this occurs while the house is being constructed, the cost is a lot less than having to install a mitigation system in an already constructed home. Once construction is complete and the house is tested, if elevated levels of radon are found, all you would have to do is install a fan to get that system up and running. Preventative measures like sealing and caulking slab penetrations and installing a polyethylene soil gas retainer can also be completed during construction.
All right, and our next question comes from Josh in Burlington. He messaged us to say that his old high school was recently found to have high levels of radon. His entire family attended the school there and has never had a problem. Why should he be concerned about this now?
Well, that is a very relevant question, Josh. Your lung cancer risk increases over a lifetime of exposure. So while you and your family were exposed to elevated levels of radon the 6 or 7 hours a day that you attended school, your primary exposure source is actually your residence. So if you're able, I would recommend testing your childhood home for radon, and if you haven't yet, definitely test the home that you're currently residing in for radon. And if that comes back elevated at 4 picocuries per liter or above, we would definitely recommend installing a radon mitigation system because it's never too late to reduce your exposure to this preventable health risk.
All right, good advice. We encourage everybody to test their homes for radon and to ask their local schools to test as well. Please share what you've learned today with your friends and family.
Thank you all for joining us, and thank you, Ryan. Please reach out if you have any questions at all, and we will see you again next year.